Okay, everyone, welcome to the Truth and Democracy Coalition News. This is I'm Rich Procida, and what I want to do today is show you some of the footage and tell you about our successful No Kings Kick Out the Clowns parade in Whittier, California on June 14th. And so but first, before I do that, what I want to ask you to do is make sure to like, share, and subscribe so that we can move this movement forward. And what we're doing is we're starting a new Whittier No Kings action team. And we're having a meeting on Sunday at 2 o'clock. And you can register for that meeting at tinyurl.com/Whittier No Kings. And we're planning to organize future events here in Whittier, and I'm trying to build a team. I was the one who organized the event here, our organization, Truth and Democracy Coalition, in coalition with Whittier Indivisible, and under the events themselves, the nationwide events, were sponsored, run by Indivisible, which is the No Kings element of it, and the Women's March, which is the Kick Out the Clowns parade. And what happened was that I saw the Women's March was doing the Kick Out the Clowns parade. I decided to do it, and then the No Kings event came up, and so we just combined them. But the No Kings were the much larger coalition, and so most of the event became the No Kings parade here in Whittier, and thousands of people attended. And now we're building a team to do future events and to organize here locally and nationally. And you can join that team and register for our upcoming meeting at tinyurl.com/Whittier No Kings. You might have to put the https:// but tinyurl.com/Whittier No Kings. And that's this Sunday, the 29th at 2 o'clock. And there's also an event that we're having on June the 17th. And this is for the John Lewis Day of Action. This is sponsored and headed up by the Transformative Justice Coalition. But all the groups are in coalition with this, as they were with No Kings. But this is on a Thursday, June 17th, and that's honoring, was it the death of John Lewis? I think that's what it was. But we're going to be talking about voting rights and the fate of the Voting Rights Act and other issues around authoritarianism and voting in the city of Whittier and around the nation. So that event will be on June 17th at 6:30 p.m. at Whittier City Hall. And we'll have speakers, we might have some food, we may have some musicians, we may have something to drink, maybe, and some socializing and discussion and organizing and talking about voting rights and the need to protect our democracy. And so plan for that. And then on the side of that, we have another event coming up, which is of a different matter. But this event is an event that is about dating and relationships, but it also has a very political aspect to it because it's about gender. And here at the Truth and Democracy Coalition, we feel that gender is just as much, if not more, the issue here, more than race, or maybe at least as much as race. It's more subtle. You're going to see attacks on people of different races, but with a driving force behind it is men's dissatisfaction, not with equality, but with the lack of equality, with women's failure to make any adjustment to equality. But it's not a one-sided issue, let's just put it that. And so that discussion is going to be called Dating Down or Rewriting the Rules. Smart Women, Hypogamy, and the Future of Relationships. And we're talking about hypogamy, which is sort of women, educational hypogamy, women dating men of lower. Well, okay, I can't talk to you now. All right. Well, I gotta go because I'm not working right now. And I'm on a video. I'm on live on video, so I can't talk to you. So, all right, bye. All right. So that was one of my clients. But anyway, so we're going to be live on video. Of course, I'm going to cut this out of the edited version. I'm doing this because I need to get the video. But I want you to know about it, that we're going to be having this event. It's about hypogamy and how we're dealing with equality. How are we going to deal with economic and equality in a situation where things were not made? Marriage and dating were not made for equality. And how we're going to deal with equality, the fact that men are going to be making less or the same as you. So that's coming up on July 6th at 2 p.m. And that's by Zoom, tinyurl.com/hypogamy, HYPOGAMY. So that's hypogamy. And we'll see you there if you're interested in that. But right now, I want to go to my website. I want to share my screen. I'm going to want to be careful here. Here, share for sound and for video. And okay, and that's what's important. And let me, Zoom puts up these things, these panels, and I don't know how they come out on your side. But here's our website. Make sure to visit it, truthanddemocracycoalition.com. And let's now go to the news section. And now we'll see that The Nation wrote up our event. And you can go to this page. And all I did was look up The Nation magazine, Whittier, No Kings Parade, and it'll come up. And you can look at this article. This will link you to that article. From the city to the suburbs, first-time protesters are showing up. And I find that so much to be true. I had a Whittier No Kings Action Team meeting on Thursday. So many new people, talking to people, never have been to protests before, but they're coming now. They understand the urgency. They understand the urgency. Yeah, so I understood that urgency very early. I think I was telling somebody today that as constitutional lawyers, we understood the problem. I mean, but also just because we're constitutional lawyers, we had some constitutionalists get in a lot of trouble for that scheme. But good constitutional lawyers knew that there's a problem. And so the many people I was a lawyer long before, not long before, but significantly before, actually long before he got elected, actually, is I had a run-in with Trump. And I guess this is as good a time to tell that story as any. I was in law school. I was playing poker at the Taj Mahal, in Atlantic City. And Trump was going to be coming down the, I don't know if there's an escalator there or a walkway there, whatever. And the people were coming, everybody telling him he should run for president. Nobody say he shouldn't run for president. And I'm like, I'm not one of those guys that follows instructions like that. Don't like having things put in my mouth or being restrained from saying what I want to do. And maybe I would have more followers if I, didn't tell you what I thought. But I said, no, you shouldn't run for president. You shouldn't run for president because he would win. I also have this psychic ability. I can foresee the future. I didn't want him to run. I didn't want him to win. And he doesn't want that. He doesn't need that type of scrutiny. But it turns out that that he could survive any scrutiny. There's no scrutiny anymore. And so nobody's going to grab him. Well, no matter what he says he can shoot somebody and he'd still get elected. And that's, that's the type of scrutiny we have. That's the sort of like a spiritual sickness, a collective epidemic of just sort of expression of, human evil in some way to allow that type of person to become the president of the most powerful nation in the world. Everyone thought about that character matters. And some of my friends to lead the world. But in any case, I was right though. And so I got kicked out of the Taj Mahal. And then, so I went over to the Tropicana. But apparently Trump owns that too. So I got kicked out of the Tropicana. But they asked me, why did you say that? I said, I don't want him to run. He said, because he's going to win. And he doesn't want that type of scrutiny. He's got a good thing going here. He's got all this money. He's got a beautiful wife. Why does he want to be president? He shouldn't run. But so they decided to allow me back into the Taj Mahal because I had, the reason I said he shouldn't run is because he would win. But I knew at that time, if you had to have somebody come and tell you something and have everybody tell you one thing, I knew that I didn't want that guy to be president. I already knew that was bizarre. And so, but in any case, also that sort of ability to have premonitions about future also told me that we were in trouble with the Hillary Clinton's election. And Democrats can't get their act together, at times. But also, as I've been telling people, one thing about the Truth and Democracy and why it needs to be created, because we need to broaden the coalition. We need to broaden the coalition. And that coalition, because there are four types of people, and one thing. And actually, I want to go back and share screen here for a minute. There are four groups of people and one thing that we have to, on the left, not just the Democratic Party, but the left, have to become more positive too. They are men, Christians, white people, Americans, and America. We are not against men. We're not against Christians. We're not against white people. We're not against Americans, and we're not against America. And we gotta watch our negativity toward those things. We have to develop a positive attitude toward those groups of people and toward America. We cannot run against men. We cannot run against Christians and Christianity. We cannot run against white people. We cannot run against Americans. We cannot run against America. We cannot win. And that's why sometimes I think that this is an intentional thing. But I think that people think they're being critical, and it's okay to be critical, but it becomes, when it turns itself into propaganda, into negativity, and propaganda is about our attitudes, and it's our attitudes towards those things that have a direct impact on how we act and behave and things we say and believe and think and argue. And sometimes it pisses those people off. I am all of those things. And I don't want to be shamed for being them. Enough shame in my life. So let's go back and talk about this event here. Okay. And I want us to go back. And so now we go to the Truth and Democracy Coalition, organized mass No Kings demonstration in Whittier. And this is a picture from the event. And Truth and Democracy Coalition leads mass No Kings, thousands of 10 Whittier No Kings demonstration. And this is my Substack here. It'll take you to my Substack, so make sure to subscribe for that. And then, so what I've done here is put together a couple of videos, and it's probably going to be pretty short here. Talk a little bit more about the Truth and Democracy Coalition. So here, the Truth and Democracy Coalition website, truthanddemocracycoalition.com. So thousands of people crowded the streets of Whittier to protest Trump's policies. People packed the sidewalks in front of City Hall and on Painter Avenue. They held unique homemade signs and screamed it as drivers honked in support. So this little video here is about, is one that I took. I'm just panning around and showing the crowd. So here we go. So the crowd then marched from City Hall down Penn Street and then up Greenleaf Avenue. They took up the entire northbound lane and sidewalk. They turned around as they approached Hadley Street and took up the entire southbound lane as they paraded back to City Hall. And so, and that's not all that paraded. The people were spread out over the city, and people were leading parades up Painter and down Hadley. And so there were more than just this. This is the one that I directed, the one I had planned for the event. But there were so many people, and they took initiative and ran their own parades and marches through the streets. And so here's some pictures.
That's right, excuse me.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. And so the action was to parody Trump's military parade and to oppose his authoritarian tactics. And that's one of the things we'll talk about later, the presence of ICE in Whittier and a city council meeting that had some police involvement the day before this event. So, and we don't need the military in the streets. Trump's heavy-handed tactics and divisive rhetoric are tools used by dictators to terrorize the populations and suppress dissent, is what I was quoted as saying, or I quoted myself as saying, actually. Trump's divisive rhetoric and name-calling certainly say nothing about the people who came together to fight back. Look at all the homemade signs. Homemade signs. Yeah. Fun time. And this is what I'm talking about. The walking food. So organizers intended the No Kings Kick Out the Clowns parade to be festive and patriotic. It was Flag Day. People brought American flags. Some hung them upside down, a traditional signal of dire distress and extreme anger. And we are in that. We are in dire distress in our democracy. And these tactics, they're really, immigrants are just the first group. Trump wants, and think of it, how many illegal immigrants or undocumented people are in the United States, and what type of structure and tactics and abuse need to be taken to force all those people out. There needs to be a pathway to citizens for some, and we do need to have control of our borders, and so we do need those things, and there are people who may not have a right to be here, but that doesn't mean we turn around and use Gestapo totalitarian type tactics that I'm quoted in the article in the Nation as saying, it's this shithole countries that Trump was talking about where masked men pull people off the streets into vans. So he talked about those shithole nations. I didn't realize that he wanted to turn the United States into a shithole nation, because that's certainly what's going to be if we allow masked agents to raid and pull people off the streets. The communities are terrified, and so many people were fearful, after the ICE raids in Whittier and the prior evening's confrontation with police after a contentious city council meeting. People are afraid because of the tactics ICE is using, said Whittier resident Megan Moe. Megan Moe is one of our co-organizers. She's been at my side doing these events together, and she's been very supportive, and I'm thankful for her. Organizers intended the Whittier No Kings Kick Out the Clowns parade to be more like a party than a protest. People brought loudspeakers, and artists played music. They chanted, "Hey, hey, hey, ho, ho, Donald Trump has got to go," and other things too. So here we have this video. And here we are we took it both sides from right over up and down. A lot of people not happy with the way they're being treated. Trump wants to arrest Gavin Newsom, and he can't arrest Gavin Newsom, but he can arrest me. He can arrest you. You know, he's already gone after students, international students. What's it next is activists. How many other people is going to be pulling off the streets? So these are totalitarian, authoritarian tactics, and this is by design. He's going to be using this not just for immigrants, the massive roundup he has to do. We don't have the facilities. You know? We need a better way than this to handle this problem. We have to recognize, first of all, the immensity of the problem and what rational solutions are available to it, and not emotional solutions that are going to inflame passions, exacerbate hatred, and lead to violence. We already have assassination attempts, and we may see more before this is over, because that is the nature of a slow moving coup. So the crowd lingered around City Hall, holding their signs and playing music as cars honked in support and loud vehicles revved their engines. Some stayed in Uptown to hold signs and patronize businesses. Organizers encouraged people to support the businesses. Everyone appeared to enjoy this positive and peaceful action to defend democracy against authoritarianism and state violence. And if we want to talk about violence, you know, the violence of the protesters is one thing, and that those people mess up our message, and that shouldn't happen. And mostly protests are like this, peaceful. There were no police to be found. We could not find a police officer anywhere, nowhere in the city. I'm sure they were watching, but everybody was peaceful. We wanted it to be a positive event. The fact that I advertised it as a parade gave it a more festive atmosphere. We even had Batman show up. I remember walking down the street saying, "Yay, Batman!" And you know, it's just fun, you know. And while having a message that we're not going to tolerate, we're going to stand up for democracy, we're going to defend the Constitution, we're going to protect voting rights, and we're not going to put up with authoritarianism or totalitarian or authoritarian tactics. And so, and that message was clear and peacefully made, and that's how most of the protesters are. When we're talking about state violence, the use of state violence and force, that's violence as well. It's not just the violence of the protesters. There's a provocative action that Trump took by sending the military in. The Los Angeles police proved perfectly capable of handling the situation themselves. Putting militaries in the streets is another action he wants to take to suppress dissent. So the Truth and Democracy Coalition works to build a mass movement to save democracy. We confront divisive propaganda and focus on bringing Americans of different religions and ideologies together to defend democracy from the threat of authoritarianism. Our vision is to bring men and women, Republicans and Democrats, radicals, moderates, socialists, liberals, and conservatives together to defend the Constitution and fight for democracy. And that should not be controversial. Should not be controversial. We don't have to necessarily agree on what that is necessarily, but the principle of defending the Constitution and standing up for our right to vote, yes, we should be able to agree on that. But that needs to happen. We value freedom, truth, and prosperity. Individuals must be free to criticize public policy, advocate for their interests, and decide who should lead them. To this end, citizens must be critical of the information and propaganda they consume. The individual is the decision maker in democracy. The individual is the basic unit of the nation state. The nation state is an association of individuals, individual human civil rights, and the right to participate in one's own governance. We need to be educated and informed. Only democracy frees people to speak their truth and advocate for justice and prosperity. So remember to share, like, and subscribe. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and Facebook, and join our meetings. The Whittier No Kings Action Team is probably going to be a weekly meeting up until at least June 17th. And then we'll see from there what we'll do next. There's going to be a lot of actions coming up. There's going to be people in the streets protesting, events. And so it's important to be informed and aware and to know, what you're doing in that case. And we want to build a broader coalition beyond just the progressive left, because we're going to need that. We're going to need that. And people are coming out, and they don't need to be radicalized. They need traditional democratic values and belief in freedom, the Constitution, the American way, and the rights of individuals to be free and to participate in their own governance. So thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you at one of our events, truthanddemocracycoalition.com, tinyurl.com/Whittier No Kings. And if you're interested, tinyurl.com/hypogamy. And we'll see you on Sunday, 2:00, Whittier No Kings Action Team, and then our next Sunday at 2:00. And thank you.